Hey everyone, it's Ivan with competence.com, out here for part 3 in the 2022 Tactical Games series, which is actually day 2 of the games down there in Phoenix, Arizona. After a pretty good night's sleep, maybe not quite as much sleep as I would have liked, it's time to head back out. Same thing, 0600 start time, and initially going over, again, safety brief, med brief, things along those lines, and then hey, here's where you need to be, kicking this thing off 07. So ended up going over to the same range we were at for, I guess, my first event on day 1. Ended up getting the briefing on that event. And then, surprise, you get to go first, which, dang it. It's one of those where basically essentially there's a rotation. So if you go first, you're not going to go first every single time, but just so happened it's time for my squad and I to go first. So ended up getting after it. This time, while there was that slog still, initially started off with a sled and basically having to drag it out and around the entire kind of perimeter. And after you had completed that whole lap, then go down, do some shooting, and then I think after that, get a mess with a giant 90-pound hot dog again, and ultimately I think one more sled pull. So a bunch of work in between strings of fire. Going down there, shooting around the barricade, and again, working through pistol as well as rifle, trying your best to get good hits while most certainly breathing hard and pretty gassed out. But went through and worked through all of it. Coming away from that event, here's what my targets look like. Not that pretty, but those were my shots. As I'd mentioned, the idea of kind of like a floater event where in between your 3 main events, you can go do it kind of whenever you want. And at the games down there, day 1, the event was largely just physical. So today, day 2, the event largely revolved around shooting. So at roughly 100 yards, there were 4 silhouettes, a larger red one in the middle, and you had to engage essentially all 4 with hits. 5th round into the center one, clear out your long gun, sprint up to firing box up close, draw out your pistol, charge it, and again, same thing, 1 hit on each of the white, and then 1 hit on the red in the middle. And you could go kind of whenever you wanted to throughout the day. So because we went first, like my squad, I'm like, well, we definitely have a big window of time. Probably gonna go drink a little water and then go give it a go. While most people there were running low power variables, for my own part, aim point T2, and got after it, getting what I could get. I actually had a camera set up facing downrange to capture me running down and shooting steel with a pistol, but the heat killed it. It was over 100 that day, and camera overheated. But I ended up shooting it. I felt I did pretty good. Out of the, 39 competitors in the tactical division, I think I came in like 11th in that event, and then I want to say like 27th or something like that, as far as out of everyone, 171 competitors, all different divisions, but whatever, got it out of the way. And it was then time to go over and get briefed on our next event. That next event started basically holding your weapon straight out in front of you at arm's length over a bungee cord, like you couldn't touch it. And so it's adjusted roughly to your armpits. And so you had to hold it out there for 2 minutes. After that, head down, start doing some shooting. That one was definitely a smoker. In part, just different weights and things like that, like things you needed to manipulate. So after initially going down and shooting, come back, and there's a bar there, like an axle bar, I think 35s on each side, something like that. And you needed to get it from the ground to overhead and then walk with it basically locked out. So snatch it, or in my case, basically clean and jerk. got it up overhead, moved down, dumped that thing, started shooting through that course of fire again, and yeah, working through it. After that, came back for, I think it's called Hoosvelt stone, basically a big like tombstone kind of looking thing. Again, get that thing down there, do some more shooting, and then ultimately kind of wrapping up that stage. You needed to get all that equipment back to your initial box, like back to that starting line. And again, different stages of fire in between all of those different physical movements. Most certainly a lot of work. And it was all said and done. Here's my targets. That day 2 was pretty hot, like 102 hot. And by the time that last event rolled around, ultimately event number 8 to include like the floater events, I was pretty gassed out. Things were starting to feel kind of tight, but there was that one more event. And the way that event was structured, again, think kind of CrossFit workout, like dwindling numbers, things like that. So I think this one was like 4, 3, 2, 1 as far as trips with a uncomfortably large sandbag. And you had to step over these kind of like little parallettes, little hurdles at the front end and the back end, dump the bag, pick it back up. So you couldn't just like shoulder this thing and like run laps. Like you had to dump it, pick it back up, dump it, pick it back up, and basically work back and forth until you had the requisite amount of laps, depending on where you were kind of in that scheme of work. And then of course, once you're at the firing line, shooting through pistol as well as rifle, working through different firing positions marked by paint, whether it be blue or white, and shooting through all of it, and finally finishing where once you'd finished that last string of fire, you had to run back through. Again, probably pays to pay attention, because if you didn't actually jump over your parallettes, like get over them, then you had to go back, like it didn't count. And some people definitely did that, which I felt their pain. Like a lot of work going into that event, especially at the very end of day 2. And yeah, they have to go sprint down and back again. Like, no, thank you. I'll just hopefully pay attention and jump over those parallettes the first time. Definitely a lot of work. And with that, here are my targets from that event. My squad, having kind of wrapped up that last event, went, took a couple little pictures, had a lot of fun going through and competing with those guys. Really good group of guys, and it was fun. After that, there was a pretty big window of time where things started getting torn down. All the scores were getting compiled, put into practice score, I guess it is. And then ultimately, after sunset, wrapped up with award ceremony. And yeah, everyone got recognized for their achievements, respectively, like first, second, third, all the different divisions. It was really cool. And one of the guys I competed with actually came in third in that tactical division.
Excuse me, men's tactical. Third place, David Fink.
Yeah, congratulations to him. He, definitely earned it. It was a lot of work out there, and yeah, people were giving it their all. It was a lot of fun. Day 2 was definitely a smoker, in part because of the weather. It was hotter than day 1, so hot. And on top of that, you had already done a lot of work on day 1. So by the time I ended up going back to my hotel room, I was like, I just don't want my body to seize up. Still hydrating, trying to stay in front of it, or at least on top of it. Still started getting some cramps back there in the hotel room. It was a lot of work over the course of 2 days. Definitely a lot of fun out there though, especially just, like I said, good group of people. And across the board, good group of people. But that wraps up day 2. As far as kind of overall the tactical games, join me. I'll kind of have a little capstone video talking about where it was when I left to where it is now. And yeah, I don't know, my experience overall with it. But good time out there on day 2. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.